the case where people could have been afraid that they were being pushed out of their jobs. One of the things that we did to avoid the rebellion was to hone in on actually the third dimension of costs and benefits that I didn't expand on yet, which is the social sort of dimension. And just to explain that quickly so here we're talking about social costs and benefits that are driving people to behave the way they do or holding them back from certain behaviors, and that humans are herd animals. And most of the time we enjoy doing things that our herd is doing. We like belonging. Most of the time we like to conform to the norm, or what we think is the norm. And in that case, with this new tool, we leaned into this by including a really awesomely diverse cohort of call center agents in the tweaks or the design of the tool. We introduced the tool in a experimental frame, like, hey, we think that this will be cool for you because actually you created it. We created opportunities for people to do something new in a social way around the tool, and that made the benefits of engaging with it much higher.
Welcome to the Product Agility Podcast, the missing link between agile and product. The purpose of this podcast is to share practical tips, strategies, and stories from world-class thought leaders and practitioners. Why, I hear you ask? Well, I want to increase your knowledge and your motivation to experiment, so that together we can create ever more successful products. My name is Ben Maynard, and I'm your host. What has driven me for the last decade to bridge the gap between agility and product is a deep-rooted belief that people and products evolving together can achieve mutual excellence.
Episode 2 with Liz Immer is here. It's the Product Agility Podcast, and my name is Ben Maynard. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop,
Hey,
whoop.
I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, I'm lovely to have you back. I like the way I said whoop, whoop in a really kind of, I think the word is sardonic way. I meant it. I'm genuinely pleased to be back.
Hey, you invited me, so
Yeah.
you better
I
be
know.
whoop, pleased.
Yeah. Not every guest gets a whoop whoop, Liz. So
Well, we're just having fun here.
we are having fun, and I think let's not kind of keep things a mystery here. My friend of mine, someone that I used to work with at JP Morgan, her name is Mary Beth, and she was brilliant. She introduced me to the phrase, like, look behind the curtain, Ben. And what she meant was, actually, other people should look behind the curtain, because all these people were getting all these like, applause for what they were doing. And she said, it's you that's doing it, Ben. People need to look behind the curtain, see what's going on behind the scenes. And just for their audience, this episode, we're just going to, well, not the previous episode, a bit of a frame. This one, we're going to talk.
We're going to talk.
We're going to talk, and we're going to see what happens. And we're going to kick off with a topic around why do people find it difficult to adopt tools, or why do people adopt tools, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
Because there's so many tools. And I was talking to my, the love of my life, second love of my life, the guy, third, fourth. I want to make sure my wife and kids know that they are the first loves
You
of my
better
life.
count correctly, yeah.
And then the fourth love of my life, a guy called Dom Heinrich. And we talk about AI a lot, and we talk about how people can use AI and some of the ways that people find it easy and they don't. But yeah, we look at ChatGPT, things like Copilot, as you mentioned. Yeah, these things like pop up, and we want people to use them, or we're creating these tools and we want people to use them, which is the situation that I'm in right now. We're creating a tool and we really want people to use it. So I would love to hear your insights on this, Liz.
Yeah,
Because I
what
think
a big one. I'm happy. I think rather than me come with some grand hypothesis, maybe I will drop some small hypotheses and we can riff on them and explore them. And
yeah.
I'll start also by framing in a pretty humble way that the way that I tend to think about topics or challenges like this is using a structure that I have very many times literally written on a A4 sheet of paper by folding it into a block with 6 or a page with 6 blocks. So I'm going to do that a little bit now. And the reason that I do that is because I tend to think of behavior as being it's something that people do or don't do based on their, some people describe it with this COM-B model, which is famous right now. It's great: capability, opportunity, and motivation. And I've sort of, I don't make a block or a page of COM-B blocks. I make a page that for me is a little bit easier and more helpful, which is, on the one hand, reasons why not to do the thing, and on the other side, reasons to do the thing. And then I break those 2 big categories into 3 dimensions, which I describe as financial, psychological, and social. And I try to go through these 6 blocks. So first, why to do the thing: financial reasons, psychological reasons, social reasons. Why not to do the thing: financial reasons, psychological, social reasons. And make some hypotheses about these behavioral drivers or inhibitors. So in this case, if we're talking about uptake of a tool, to some extent, it is quite context dependent. So it depends on the tool, it depends on the marketing of the tool, it depends on the environment and the role that the person is in. And quite obviously, money isn't the only thing that matters, but money does matter. So to some extent, the more expensive the tool, the less likely somebody is to use it. And if the person's getting paid to use the tool explicitly, maybe it's more likely that they're going to use it. But we also know that 2 things. First of all, money isn't the only thing that matters. And second, in workplace environments, money might not be the thing that's affecting an employee's behavior, because they just, they have the login to the thing. So we can, for the sake of this example, maybe discount that a bit. Although I could tell you a great story about the time I advocated for Miro licenses, and the other time I advocate for licenses. But for this, it's just about employee usage. So we'll push the lobbying for budget to the side. But it, that's also important for product companies that are creating B2B software. And Figma and Miro are geniuses at it. But let's move into the more interesting dimensions that I think matter more. And I could take an example of a co-pilot tool. And this is something that I've observed in my own work, and also know it's not exclusive to the organizations I've been a part of. Indeed, Microsoft even gave a talk about this several years ago as part of the Behavioral Insights team series on AI. In many cases, we introduce tools that we're pretty convinced are going to help our business, and are pretty convinced are going to help our employees to perform better or work more efficiently. And do things like tell this to the employee that the software is going to help them. And the employees either engage with the tool too little, or engage with the tool not a lot, or rebel against the tool, maybe in a brutal way. It's also something that I've observed before, because of really important psychological costs. Either they are annoyed by the tool. That's a cost that I want to avoid. I don't like being annoyed. They think that the tool is going to be hard to start using, and they can't afford to change their habits. Even if it's going to lead to efficiency gains in the future, they can't afford it now because they have hourly or monthly targets that they need to keep the cadence of achieving.
Yeah.
Or another really big one that I've been so impressed by, and you can see it also in quantitative data, is a rejection based on beliefs about personal identity. Here it comes down to jobs to be done as well. Hey, I'm doing this job because I'm an expert at this thing. And the tool takes that away from me. It makes me less special and my expertise less valid. So I would rather maintain this aspect of confidence and my identity, even if I incur with that the cost of an opportunity cost of efficiency gain. What do you think about that?
It's too hard and I can't afford to change right now is classic. And I think whether that's the adoption of a tool or many things in life is that people feel that they haven't got the time. They can't make that investment, even though, and I think this is one of those classic System 1, System 2, Elephant Rider kind of stories here, which is rationally, as the person who is asking them to engage with this tool or use this tool, we're saying, actually, well, logically, look, this is going to make your life better. To the other person, that's just an opinion. There's no fact there. And actually, that's what the person is just used to doing, is doing things in that way, especially when I suppose a tool makes them feel less special, then it's going to detract away from their sense of identity. Is there also an element of people not wanting to be exposed? So if I use this new tool, then I'm going to have to work in this way. And then people are going to see that actually I'm not very good at working in that way. But if I can just protect myself by continuing working in this particular way, then I'm not going to end up putting myself in a situation where I look crap.
I think what you're also getting to is a bigger theme. Have you read the big, thick book, Thinking Fast and Slow, already?
Many years ago,
Okay.
many years ago,
So,
yeah.
but in that book, one of the many things in that, it's a thick one somewhere behind me, is a discussion of this phenomenon of loss aversion. And loss aversion is this it's a label that describes that humans have a tendency to fixate more strongly on what they could lose and spend less focus on what they could win. The tagline is losses loom larger than gains. And the fear of losing is many times more painful than the excitement of the prospect of winning. And here you're talking about one way to lose, but there are lots of ways to lose. And another thing that we're both sort of circling around, which occurs to me, is another phenomenon that we have called temporal myopia or present bias.
Yeah.
And this is us having a really hard time imagining the future. And when people tell us, it might even be data that they show us, it's real, how we will benefit in 1 month or 6 months or 1 year. Even if it's data, even if it's true, it's super difficult for our brains to compute that in the future. Now I'm going to change the subject really to a different example that I think illustrates this so beautifully. My favorite example around present bias is the story of toothpaste. Do you know this one?
I do not.
Do.
Well, okay, I think I do.
As I've heard it told, early in the 20th century, there were a group of dentists who were convinced that the populace should start taking better care of their teeth and their mouth. And there was this paste that people could use, and it would be really helpful. The problem was that nobody was buying and using this stuff, this paste. And there were campaigns explaining, like, if you use this paste, you're going to have better teeth, in the future. You're going to have better heart health in the future. It was not moving people to action. And then along came some creative team or inventor. I should look at the details of the story again. I'd love to know who's responsible for the amazing invention that happened. The amazing invention were two things. First, they introduced a taste to that toothpaste. And second, they introduced a marketing campaign around it. And the marketing campaign was, brush your teeth. No longer it's going to be better for you in the future. Brush your teeth. It's going to be better for you now.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to enjoy the minty taste. You're going to enjoy the smooth feeling. Huh? They're bringing the benefit into the present.
Mm-hmm.
And it moved people because that's something that can resonate with our system one
Mm-hmm.
elephant brains. It's not something that'll help us, later. It's something that's going to help us now. And I think ChatGPT is an example of a tool that has moved the needle in a big way, in part because it is so easy to get onboarded to. It is so easy to get that first benefit. And it's not about the future, it's about the now. And the way that they framed their onboarding and a lot of the flows in the product are specifically designed to avoid giving the impression that it's interfering with my job to be done or my identity or my expertise. It's a complement. It's a supplement. Copilot in the name does this too.
That's very true.
Right. But in a lot of implementations of that tool and others, it's not so obvious that it's my co-pilot. It feels like I'm going to move to the back of the plane.
Yeah.
And give him the shitty coffee.
So there's a big thing here when I kind of think about things from a systems thinking point of view. It's just around, things are more effective when cause and effect are tightly coupled in time and space. Because we get that immediate feedback. And I suppose then was it temporal myopia? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah,
yeah. It reminds me of hyperbolic discounting.
It's the same,
Yeah,
it's really the same phenomenon.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the further in the future, the harder it is for us to imagine.
That exactly. Yeah. No, and I think kudos. My favorite people, Judy Dirksen, told me about hyperbolic discounting when she first came on the podcast like a couple of years ago. It really stuck with me. But I love all this. I love these ideas, right, about temporal myopia, the present bias, hyperbolic discounting around the fact that if cause and effect aren't tightly coupled in time and space, then we do find it difficult to stick at stuff and to learn. It's really, really fascinating. And I suppose that if we are in a situation, are we where we are in trying to introduce a tool, or maybe it isn't even a software tool, if it's a practical skills-based tool, or trying to introduce a new practice where we can't see that there is an immediate benefit? What do we do then?
But I would challenge that those contexts are as prevalent as they might seem to be.
Okay.
And we started our conversation a while ago talking about OKRs and how important goals are. It's all the same. It's all the same, right? What is the effect? There is always an effect, and we can usually craft the environment so that a positive effect is a done deal. It just might not be the ultimate effect we're hoping for. Let me back up and I'll give an example and hopefully it'll make more sense. But several years ago, we were introducing a tool for a call center. And this was a classic case where people could have been afraid that they were being pushed out of their jobs due to this, much, much better tool. And one of the things that we did to avoid the rebellion was to hone in on actually the third dimension of costs and benefits that I didn't expand on yet, which is the social sort of dimension. And just to explain that quickly before explaining what worked there. So here we're talking about social costs and benefits that are driving people to behave the way they do or holding them back from certain behaviors. And the way that I think about this is that humans are herd animals. And most of the time, we enjoy doing things that our herd is doing or that we think that our herd is doing. We like belonging. Sometimes we like role modeling, but most of the time we like to conform to the norm or what we think is the norm. And in that case, with this new tool, we really we leaned into this by including a really awesomely diverse cohort of call center agents in the tweaks or the design of the tool to some extent. And we incorporated them into the introduction of the tool. We introduced the tool in a experimental frame, like, hey, we think that this will be cool for you because actually you created it or your organization created it. And please, we had one cohort design. Here we have another cohort of feedback givers and who will help with the next iteration. So we created opportunities for people to grow in their careers, do something new, interesting in a social way, in a cohort around the tool. And that made the benefits of engaging with it much higher than would have otherwise been. And, then once there was a critical mass of people who were engaging with it, it did become the norm. And it also got a lot better thanks to the feedback that they gave, that we could make adjustments. So that's a different kind of an effect than, the milliseconds people are spending on the calls or the number of transfers call center agents need to do, or the number of fewer transfers they need to do. That would be maybe a typical KPI, but we switched the frame to really build some positive momentum from the get-go.
So is there almost like a call to action here then, if we're saying that we want to get people to change their behaviour by using a new tool, a new practice, or because we are bringing something new into them, which maybe won't pay off quickly, or perhaps people are going to push back on because it is going to affect their identity in some way. But if we get creative and if we think about ways to then begin to bring people, say, on the journey, or think of other creative ways to create some more immediacy in the cause and effect, that we can then pace ourselves towards that longer objective. So the conversation we had very briefly before we recorded, actually, we were talking about OKRs, and I was saying how I was talking to somebody and saying how OKRs, the key results part of that, should be how you're judging your pace towards your objective. So you know what to slow down on, what to speed up on, how are you doing, and that should be how you're communicating your progress. What we're saying here is that if our objective is something, yes, which is 3, 6, 9, 12 months, however long it is away, your key results are the things that we can do to celebrate along the way, which gets people engaged in and remaining focused on that larger goal.
Maybe the KRs are not the things we do, but what will signal to us that we're on the way, and then the activity. Yes. And what I would add, just to wrap up this conversation about the costs and benefits in these different examples, is that what I'm absolutely convinced of is that with the creativity, once we've identified what the inhibiting factors could be, and what the driving factors could be, we have the space as designers and as leaders to develop the environment that will not just, bring people I'm going to have to add a caveat. Bring people to behave better, but to actually benefit from it. It's not about tricking people, right? It should be real benefits that they receive. It should be real positive effects that we're just shifting the focus onto. We talked in the last episode about desired outcomes and the danger of defining a business goal and a desired outcome we need to observe in order to be on our way to achieving the business goal, and the importance of making sure that that desired outcome is not just something that's in the business's best interest, but also in the person's best interest. And this is a really critical caveat. I need to put a banner over whenever talking about behavior change. If you are on a mission to force people to change behavior in a way that's actually not going to help them, they're going to figure it out at some point. And then they're going to really stop cooperating with you over the long term. So it's critical to have that on our radar.
I've got my pained thinking face on because I read this the other day and I can't think where. It's bugging me.
Maybe from Rachel Botsman, I could imagine.
Yeah, it's just because it's really ringing a bell. And it reminds me from a coaching perspective, like learning about professional coaching. I mean, I went on a long multi-year journey to become a fully qualified professional coach because I felt the qualification was important. And one of the examples they asked us to consider is when we are an internal coach in an organization and we've been brought in to coach someone by their manager. The manager wants us to make them a better corporate citizen. The person just wants to leave. If we are truly to coach them in a professional coaching capacity, is our duty to help them be a better corporate citizen, or help them figure out how to do that, or help them to figure out how they leave? And ultimately, the answer is you do what's right for the coachee. We can't put any agenda on these things. And if that person decides to stay or decides to leave, that is always their decision. And I think that personal element, that disconnect between the organization and the person, we can't always assume that just because we're doing something for the good of the organization and this tool or practice or thing we're putting in place, OKRs, whatever it might be, is going to really help the organization. If it doesn't connect to the people,
then it's going to rebound.
Yeah, there won't be any change. And we're not saying here we're talking about going off and making friends, are we? And just being nice to people. I take it there's what we're talking about, this level of influence and this getting people on board is much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Much more rigorous, and it isn't just about being a good human, right? We are talking about really understanding people's motivations here.
Yes, certainly. You're going to have to edit out this pause.
It's all right. AI does that for me.
I'm going to keep pausing till I have a sentence. I think what I would say to that is that ultimately we are working for organizations that have goals. And very often these are business goals. And it's critical that these goals are achieved, right? Otherwise, we're not going to earn a paycheck. Very seldomly is it the case that a business is going to achieve its goals in the long term by screwing people, right? Usually people will go back to the business that they trust, that they believe is going to bring them value. And so I think we must always start with the goal, usually the business goal. And we must consider the humans who need to behave in a certain way in order to achieve that goal. We must work to bring them to do the things that enable the business to succeed. But if we do that in a way that tricks them, we are not helping the business, actually. And, or if we try to bring them to behave in a way that they don't want to, it will not help the business. I talk a lot about system 1 and system 2, and maybe the listeners are also familiar with this rule of thumb that it describes that, we have system 1, it's the fast system in our brain. It works reactively based on habit, just go, go, go. Makes, plenty of mistakes, has a lot of shortcuts that it takes. We have a second system, system 2, which is reflective. It's more of the Spock. It's like the perfect thinker system. But system 2, while it's sort of perfect, we only have enough energy to use it 5% of the day. So we're stuck in system 1. And some companies use this framework to argue that introducing, all the the nudges that get system 1 to behave in a certain way is reasonable and justified, and they see it in their KPIs that when they make the button bigger and green, then people click on it more, or red if you're booking.com. And designing purely for system 1 by introducing these nudges and these tricks to get our instinctive rider in the Heath book to do the things that can help us maybe for a few quarters to achieve our KPIs. But ultimately, everybody does have that 5 to 10% of their brain time in system 2. And maybe it's happening at a dinner table over the weekend when they're talking with their friends about some experience they had using some software. And in that, deeper conversation, they realize by whatever it was, that's going to be embarrassing for them. That's going to be regretful for them. They might get angry. And then they're going to, stop cooperating with your software or brand in the longer term. So I always advocate to businesses to think quite carefully about which goals they set, which behavioral goals they set, and make sure it sort of stands that Saturday night dinner system 2 thinking test. Will our users be embarrassed or angry when they realize what they've done because we asked them to do it?
Fascinating. It's fascinating. There's plenty of times when I've not used tools or services ever again because of some sneaky thing which I just thought was terrible. There was one service I used recently, and they did a thing where I connected it to my LinkedIn account. This is part of a service they offer. But because I have 2 email addresses on my LinkedIn account, they charged me twice. There's only one profile, but they charged me twice. And I cancelled one, but didn't cancel the other, and they charged me for a year. And I'm like, I've cancelled it. And no, you haven't, sir. You cancelled it on this email address, but not this email address. So I didn't even realise I was signing up twice. I just figured it was once. And that kind of thing really annoyed me. And I felt tricked and I felt duped. And
if it's a pretty good tool, you're probably going to tell at least some friends about it. And they're not, maybe the most amazing tool can overcome that.
Maybe
annoying their user a little bit. But you have to be a really, really, really amazing tool to get over that.
I mean, I'm not sure if that was a feature or a bug, but it did piss me off. I mean, there's a lovely idea that the easy way out always leads back in. And I do wonder with some of these kind of quick fixes, these little nudges, that sure, they give a slight uptick, but that's only going to get you so far before you actually have to do the hard work of really trying to make a more calculated, larger decision. Is that fair to say, do you think? Or am I just kind of barking the wrong tree?
I don't know if in all cases it needs to be a much bigger, calculated, larger decision. I would, if we had more time to discuss and really get into an example, I would try to drive it back again to the goal. What are the behaviors, maybe multiple, that you need people to do today and tomorrow and in 7 months in order to achieve, not just your goal for today, but also your goal in that future that feels very difficult to imagine.
Yes.
and make it a more vibrant reality.
I think that's a lovely way of putting it, a more vibrant reality. And I think that's really solid advice. If we have a goal and you're asking yourself, what do people need to do differently today, tomorrow, next week, and in 7 months' time? to create that vibrant reality that seems like
Yeah.
a
On
nice human.
Tuesday, the 12th of November, even that trick helps. It's not just 7 months. Give it a day of the week and a month. Like, we did this in bills and collections warnings. We switched the language from just being like 11/11 to Tuesday, the 11th of November, and people understood much better that there was an actual deadline, and they paid their bills a lot faster.
That's interesting, isn't it? That's really interesting. Yeah, I wonder why that is. I'm not even going to bother trying to hypothesize because I will just talk rubbish and miss the
People are
mark.
bad at numbers.
Mhm.
Brains are bad at numbers. We talk about stories and visuals. Those are the best, but even a day of the week is on the way to being a story.
Brilliant.
And the vibrancy of the future.
And Tuesday feels much much closer than November because Tuesday's actually next week. I know we're talking about Tuesday.
I know what a Tuesday is.
Exactly.
Right? I'm going to go swimming at 7.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. And it's going to suck. I should go pay a bill now.
Yeah, right. Well, on that, I'm going to say, Liz, that we draw this episode to a close because I have fatherly duties to attend to.
Hey, that's very important. It was a pleasure, Ben. Really fun.
Absolute pleasure. I've got my mind as a wash with ideas and things that I would love to talk to you more about. So let's stay in touch, if that's okay.
I would love to stay in touch with you, and I would also love to stay in touch with the listeners. I really enjoy hearing about challenges that organizations are having or successes that you're having. So please reach out to me and share your stories.
Well, Liz, I mean, if you're up for it, maybe we could do a little live stream.
Yeah, that could be fun.
And bring your challenges live stream.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, look at that. See?
I'll bring a beer.
Yeah, let's do a Friday afternoon beer live stream.
Oh,
beer and live streams. Okay, well, watch this space, listeners. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Insta, even TikTok to be made aware of when this live stream is going to happen. Because now that you've said it on the episode, I feel like I can hold you to that. Liz, thank you so much again for your time. And we're going to get some time into arrange that live stream. Everyone, make sure you come along and listen and bring your challenges. We'll be more specific about that when we do the promotion for it. And let's end it here. Liz, anything else you'd like to share before we end?
Ooh, that's so great. I'm going to quote Brené Brown, and she always signs off her episodes with a directive to stay awkward, brave, and kind. I think there's a lot of behavioral science behind that, and I'm going to reiterate it for us and the listeners as well.
Thank you very much. I can definitely do at least one of those things. I'll leave it to people's imaginations as to which one that is. Thank you very much, Liz, and thank you everyone for listening.
Bye, Ben.